We will call this meeting of the Sustainability and Resiliency Committee to order. Thanks, everybody, for attending. We have a few folks that will be joining us online, but let's run around the table and introduce those of us who are present and then go online. I'm John Strand, Chair.
Tim Mahoney, Mayor Fargo. Tim Mahoney, Mayor Fargo.
Brenda Derrick, Assistant City Administrator.
Dave Beats, Fargo Park District.
Sean Paschke, XL Energy.
Bruce Grubb, City Administration. And, sorry, Greta, but we were informed that Chad and Jen are not available today because we're on the third Tuesday rather than the second, but we'll make it next time.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Greta.
Greta Graymig, Public Representative.
Ben Dow with Fargo Public Works.
Julie Bauman, Transit.
Becky Majerus, Facility Management.
Shauna Radnick, Inspections.
And over behind us, we have Diana and Laura. Laura has replaced Shelley, so you'll see either of those two doing our minutes, and welcome to both of you, and thank you. Online, I believe we have, maybe Brian can help, we have Mike Williams, and who else, Bruce?
And one of our presenters, Seth Strongen with HDR.
Okay. Are you there, Mike? Can you hear us okay?
Yep, everybody sounds good.
All right, thank you for joining us from your vacation land is it in Arizona, Mike?
Yep, we're checking out Lake Havasu, and it's pretty nice here.
Good for
It's
you.
pretty nice back home, too. You guys have a good winter.
We're having a heat wave. Okay, we've done introductions, and remind me, Bruce, the status of the youth member?
The Fargo Youth Initiative at, I think I put the memo to the commission recommending the appointment. Yes. Second page. And so Setya Hamidi, did I get the pronunciation correctly? She is the new appointee.
Okay, and is she online today with us, or?
She is not, but she
Okay.
was on the meeting invite distribution. So I'll verify that with
Great.
camera after
So
this.
that's our new youth member going forward. All right, we have, let's continue on. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, and same for the minutes of the December meeting. Is there a motion to approve the December minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay. Bruce, I'll turn it over to you to introduce our topics and the speakers. And just so you all know, Bruce, we can't thank you enough for being the point person for this committee and for what you do in organizing and seeing a pathway forward, and just know it's appreciated.
Thank you. Yeah, this item, I think, has a lot of interest to most of us, probably all of us. You know, the status of grant funding opportunities. You probably recall at our August meeting last year, 2024, HDR, I believe it was Brian and Colin Rolfing, presented us with a roadmap. You know, it was kind of a path forward regarding sustainability and resiliency. And we didn't identify any concrete next steps, but one of the things that we talked about is what's the low-hanging fruit on the roadmap. And it seemed to be related to the building retrofit energy efficiency side of things. And so we had received a direct funding allocation, EECBG funds that our Director of Facilities, Becky Majerus, took advantage of and is utilizing that funding to do that very thing. And if I'm not putting Becky on the spot too much, before I turn it over to Brian King and Seth Strongen, I thought maybe Becky could tell us how she's utilizing that funding that we're not losing.
Good.
Thank you, Bruce. So yes, we did get the funding, and that was in the amount of about $176,000. We had identified 3 projects that we wanted to utilize those fundings for. And kind of the top priority for us was the computer maintenance management system, which will allow us to better track our assets and do those retrofits that we're looking at in a timely and cost-effective manner. I did reach out to the EECBG and verified that this funding is still in place, that because we have already signed off on it, it will still be available. So we are moving forward with that, and at last night's commission meeting, the contract was approved with FM 360, who will be our consultant, and will help us with both the selection and the implementation of that CMMS system.
Thank you, Becky.
Yeah, so I thought that was good news. Thanks, Becky. I was contacted by Brian King a few weeks ago, and he had just participated in a meeting with HDR's sustainability grants team. They're a national firm, and got some updates on the current state of grant funding opportunities. And Brian thought maybe the SRC would like to get an update. And I thought that's a really great idea. And since that time, there have been some reductions in funding available. So I followed up with the HDR team and said, what we're going to talk about and present today, could you also give us kind of a status update? What you know and what you don't know, because we all kind of have those same questions. So Brian and Seth, are you on? There he is. Can I kick it over to you now?
Yes. All right. Yeah, Seth, can we hear you? Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, can you guys hear me? As Bruce indicated, there's been quite the discussions and fast-moving implications in DC since the new administration have taken place. And so Seth and his group and our funding organization has been well in touch with, the City of Fargo is not our only client that's wondering what's going on. And so, and how fast it's moving. So I asked Bruce if he'd be willing or interested in presenting. And just because our funding organization, just during the last administration alone, secured over almost $2.5 billion worth of funds for grant opportunities for clients. And we do have 16 on-call contracts for grant writing to the federal government, with the state of North Dakota as one of them. So the benefit of me running the local office and having Seth and his group to show the horsepower and their knowledge of what's going on is a great benefit. So with that, I'm going to turn that over to Seth, and we can go through this document.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks everyone for making the time for us to present here. As both Bruce and Brian mentioned, it's anything to deal with funding opportunities that are coming from higher levels of government has been in a little bit of uncertainty over the last few weeks and month or so. And so just wanted to give a brief update on what we know now. And in some cases, we're just going to need to kind of keep paying attention to what's going on and stay on top of things as there's new developments, because it really is changing almost on a daily basis, or if it's not quite daily, it's just kind of a lot of uncertainty right now. So the first, and this information is all in the packet, of course. The first opportunity I wanted to call your attention to is a state program through the Energy Conservation Program. That is still running and is a good opportunity for energy efficiency and facility improvements through a state program. So I definitely encourage that's one to keep on the table, and certainly glad to hear that your already contracted opportunities are still going through as well. Obviously, that's a very positive. But then really after we get past the North Dakota Energy Conservation Program, that's where we really do start to get into a lot of this kind of uncertainty moving forward. And so there's another program called that's a state program through the state of North Dakota government that's just called their energy program. It's a little bit wider ranging than the Energy Conservation Program, but that is through a federal funding source. And so that is because of that sort of on the a question mark right now. So I think that there needs to be a little bit of additional due diligence with the program itself about, whether they have their funding for the next year and whether their cycles have been thrown off at all. So if there's interest in that, that's obviously something that HDR can help out with. But also then moving down as we go through the packet here, we start to get into some of these federal opportunities. And that's where there's really quite a lot of uncertainty right now. This first one is a grant program called Protect. It is the next generation of what used to be called the RAISE grants. And so I believe that it's something that you all have some experience with in the past. And this is a great annual program. It just closed its annual funding opportunity or application deadline just closed in February. So unfortunately, we just missed that opportunity for this go around. And of course, everything moving forward is, this is a good example of one of the TBD, and we'll want to see, what happens with this year's funding and pay attention for future announcements. In the past, this has been an annual program. So they have sort of a deadline every February, approximately every February. So definitely want to still keep your eyes on, but also, an example of the uncertainty we're dealing with. And so continuing down, I talked a little bit about the community development block grant. I believe that's when I was able to get into the meeting here. So this is a program that, if the funding has already been sort of allocated through the state, there could still be opportunities to tap into this funding. It is administered by the state. It ultimately does come from the federal government. And so this is another one where it's a little bit of case by case, and would have to identify some specific projects you'd be interested in potentially pursuing, and then could engage in a conversation on that specific opportunity or the opportunity within this block grant from there. And then moving on to the FEMA grants, the BRIC grant, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, is a great program that can cover quite a lot and is most likely to exist in some way, shape, or form moving forward. But right now on the FEMA website, there's a big disclaimer that goes across the top of all of their funding opportunities, which says that to have patience, and that FEMA's in the process of updating their opportunities and their website in alignment with the current administration's priorities. So again, it's hard for me to believe that these type of opportunities are going to completely disappear moving forward, but it's just a little bit in a holding pattern where they're explicitly telling people that, this information is in the process of being updated. And just going down to the last couple here, similarly, there's a series of grant programs called the Bridge Investment Program, BIP, and that covers there's a few different programs under the Bridge Investment Program, or sub-programs rather, covering large-scale bridge projects, small-scale bridge projects, planning projects. All of those are in that same boat where there's currently kind of disclaimers around them that things are being updated, and stay tuned for how things will change. Again, I can't imagine that these programs will entirely go away, but they may end up taking a different shape, and they certainly may have some different criteria associated with them. So, important to make everyone aware of these. I'd say, definitely want to keep tracking this. But, right now, unfortunately, in most of these cases, there's not necessarily action to be taken. And the flood mitigation assistance from FEMA is in that exact same category as the other FEMA BRIC program, where, again, they've explicitly stated that they're in the process of their updating everything right now. And, just kind of need to wait until those updates are available. So, I do think there's one other one in here. Yeah, the Economic Adjustments, Public Works and Economic Adjustment Assistance Program. That is much, much broader and, again, likely to stick around. But right now, I believe this one is has the, it typically runs on a kind of ongoing basis. There's not really deadlines per se. You can just sort of submit an application when you have a viable project. But right now, they are not accepting applications. That sort of portal is not available. The site itself hasn't changed the information about it. So, again, reason to believe that in some way, shape, or form, this will stick around. But for better or for worse, right now, it's falling into the same pattern as most of these, that there's just a lot of uncertainty. So I think that pretty much covers what we have. There are links for most of these opportunities if you did want to go through to the sites themselves. And again, would definitely encourage that this is staying on everyone's radars, is something that, we can continue to come and provide updates on as appropriate. But for better or for worse, there are limitations to new funding opportunities.
Thank you, Seth, and Brian. Brian, I'm glad to see you here. I saw you at the National State League of Cities, and it was out of context. I'm going, who are you? Help remind me who you are. This conversation about funding and grants and allocation of resources is just huge. I was in DC last week, and nobody knows anything except that they all know that it's in limbo. What I did get, though, is a sense from our congressional delegation, especially Senator Hoban directly, being as he sits on appropriations, is we're fortunate when some people are having to earmark. He's on appropriations, so like the diversion's protected there. But they all cautioned us, if you have departments that or programs that you're going to see the writing on the wall, or you're getting information that the grants are at risk or the funding's at risk, they want to know, so they can help intercede on our behalfs for all the cities around here. But and I don't know, we have several department heads in here, but if Julie and Ben and Sean and Becky, if you have budgeting cuts happening, let administration know so we can advance that over to the federal delegation, and at least they're aware of it. But it's gray right now, and I'll continue briefly, but my sense is if you have a contract in place, it's probably more likely secure. If you have something you expect coming but it isn't signed, it's iffy. If you're just beginning to apply, good luck, is kind of the bottom line I heard. Does anybody have any feedback from your own reach of what you're seeing or hearing, or to help us each other know more than what we're already learning? Mayor, are you hearing anything?
I just had a question of Seth, is that we have a brick grant on our 12th Avenue Bridge. My curiosity is that's the engineering part now we're going into, as far as Brennan made me understand. If we wanted to go further, would that be the BIP grant if we wanted to actually build a bridge? Is that I needed 25 million, John? Is that something like, Brenda? Is that what would happen, or would we stay in the brick program?
We're actually in the raise, so that's a
raise,
raise.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it's the 12th Avenue between Fargo and Moorhead. And so we actually have a raise grant to design, and then my understanding is you can apply for the raise grant, but I think there's also other options. So right now it's a bridge that floods frequently, and so that's part of why it's under the raise, is so it'd be elevating it to not allow those flooding events as frequently as we're seeing today. So it would actually be above the level we need for the diversion, the highest level. And so, I mean, today we were looking at, once we get that planning part done, we would go into that raise application. But it does look like there would be maybe some other options for us too. If you have
And
any
Seth,
other.
it was
Yeah,
just, I
I
was
think
in
that's
Washington.
exactly right.
I was in Washington, and when
Go
Biden
ahead.
spoke, it seemed like there was still money left in the infrastructure. Some money, and when I say some money, it's millions and millions. It's not just a couple hundred. It seemed like a fair amount. I don't know if Trump is reaching in and saying, oh, we're not going to do that anymore, because it's confusing sometimes. If something was authorized and money set aside in a bank somewhere, is that money still available? So go ahead, Seth. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I appreciate the context. And I was just going to sort of agree with the last set of comments that I think you can stay under the RAISE program. If you're already within that program, there may be additional opportunities, again, with the gigantic caveat, as was appropriately said, that it's a lot of gray right now. But, your grant that's already, sort of allocated and being executed, I think that funding, as was said earlier, typically what we're seeing is that funding is safe. You can stay under that same program. You don't necessarily have to be looking to out additional grant programs. Again, with that big caveat of, future phases are all in question marks right now. But maybe, in an ideal world, when the funding sort of sorts itself out, that there could be multiple funding opportunities that are helping to support that project.
Yeah, if you just would keep Brenda appraised of that, so she can apply for all those and become a hero of Northside Fargo.
Absolutely.
Brian and Seth, anything else, or anybody else, questions or feedback for this topic? Bruce?
Mr. Chair, just one comment. I mean, since I've been here my 30-plus years, I mean, we've applied for and received a lot of grant funding. Pre-disaster mitigation is what it used to be called. Now it's called BRIC, I believe. And we also assisted the city of Washburn, North Dakota, submit a BRIC application that actually got approved. So that's one that it's a really good, beneficial program for infrastructure, and we've used it and would like to continue to be able to use it.
Anybody else? This whole, even changing our language, we have to be cautious sometimes the words we use relative to the dynamic and the culture. And some words can trigger a consequence that we wouldn't have expected. So we're all kind of walking on eggshells, and yet fighting for our local needs and fighting for representation to represent us as best we can. But keep us apprised, keep administration aware of any changes, especially in your departments or in your reach that you're seeing, so we can be as proactive as possible. But there's just, we're the Sustainability and Resiliency Committee. In even that language today is, I'm glad we're not DEI because that's gone. But that's the kind of consequence we face right now. So but it's our reality. I'm glad we're continuing forward and keep learning and listening to each other and advocating for what's right, especially at the local level. Anything else, Seth and Brian?
No, thank you for the opportunity. We will keep on, and you talk about the different word changes. We went from build to raise, and now we're back to build as of last week. So now it's back to the build grant for the construction. And yes, the 12th Avenue Bridge, we'll fall under the build construction grant or the protect or the BIP. That's on this on these sheets. So, and the other utilities, they're well aware of the grant opportunities that are out there. I've met with them. I think all the directors have done a good job and are really conscious of what these grants are and the effort that it takes, because these are competitive, and there's a lot that come in. So just be rest assured your departments are doing a good job looking out for the citizens.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Brian, can I just understand, is your company, in a sense, looking for grants for the city of Fargo to apply for? Or have we contracted you to do that, Bruce? Is there something like that? Because we recently did a thing on Bloomberg and went out to the grant for that, and it's $1 million basic operating capital. Is this company, Bruce, if I went to my wish list, when John always goes, if you could dream anything you wanted, what could you do? Is this the company that basically would say, hey, let's go after this grant?
Well, I don't know if you recall this or not, but this committee put out an RFP or request for qualifications to help us put this sustainability roadmap together. HDR was selected, and they completed that work, completed the scope of that work. But in case we want to build further on that, they have a national team that does this type of research. They'll also do the work for you if you choose to, but Brian thought maybe since we've got this team and I've got this update, I can talk to the committee because we really don't have a budget here. And so when it comes to grant funding programs, that's kind of what we rely on to take action on things. So I just thought this.
Well, John, I mean, just bear with me. We're a resilient committee, and basically at a flood event, 12th Avenue Bridge goes down. So the north side of the community really cannot travel back and forth. We're also resilient on 64th Avenue is a big area that's going, and we need an interchange there. Again, if I go on the resiliency part of this committee, do we need to look maybe in our budget to have in this mayor or in the city budget to have money for grant money, because oftentimes this is millions of dollars. It's not just 5 or 10. I think the interchange 64 is 30 or 40 million, as I understand it, and 12th Avenue Bridge might be 20 million. But the idea, John, would be that do we begin to entertain that maybe we should put forth to the commission that we should look for a company to do some grant writing for us if when this sorts out the next 3 months, there's an opportunity to get some grant money for 26.
My sense is that that would be incredibly worthwhile. And where we've landed is to try help us find some grants and funding allocations so that we can create some openings, and the times are changing, but we need you maybe now more than ever before as far as helping us sort out and look for moments and opportunities or openings for us for funding. Like, I don't know, but like we were all pretty excited about that I believe it was an EPA grant that we thought we might get from the state recommendation to accelerate and consolidate our LED streetlight conversions and do 5 years worth all at once. And my guess is that would be gone now too. So it's just all up in the air, but there will be moments and there will be opportunities, especially relative to our congressional delegation, things that are relevant to North Dakota and to their advocacy, and they're in a positions of influence there that will be immensely valuable to us. But Brian, keep this door open. Help Bruce and us know, and administrations know anything you see that could create an opening. And then, I believe you're right, we should get some seed money in our budget so that we can leverage it forward. This committee has been operating on a shoestring.
But shouldn't Becky start looking for natural gas applications with the new news coming out of natural gas? Shouldn't we put that in all our buildings because it's going to be cheap energy?
Anything else? Thanks, you guys, very much. Thank you, Seth,
Thank you.
online. Bruce, and
Thank you very much.
Before we go quite to the next one, James Hand from the school district has joined us. Thank you very much for being here. Okay, Bruce, I'll let you introduce the next topic.
Yeah, item number 6. At a city commission meeting earlier this month, the commission got a presentation on Fargo's plan to replace lead water service lines. I really enjoyed the presentation, and the light bulb kind of went off that this adds to the sustainability and resiliency of our water distribution system, safe drinking water. And so I thought it really fit under the umbrella of sustainability and resiliency. So I talked to Troy Hall, our water utility director, and said, this might be really good information for the Sustainability and Resiliency Committee, and also a way to disseminate this yet again publicly, because we're televised. So I thought it's a good opportunity. He agreed, and so Troy and Matt Christensen, our regulatory manager, and Maggie Sarr, our compliance coordinator, have worked really hard on this program, riddled with challenges, as you might expect, because it deals with the private side of a water service line in addition to the public side. So they were willing to show up here and update this group on their efforts at Resiliency. And so Troy, with that, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. My role is pretty quick today. I'm going to talk about Matt and Maggie, and they're going to present some slides, some information on our program, and then following up on the grant topic that you just talked about here. Our grant funding, state, federal grant funding for this lead service line replacement is in North Dakota counts, as we understand it. And then we did receive some good news here of an award letter for another lead service line grant, and we are applying for another one in addition to that. But with that, introduce Maggie Sarr. She's our compliance coordinator in our environmental lab. She does a whole bunch of stuff, including the grant work. She was the one that initiated the grant that we most recently received the award notice on. Matt Christensen, he's our regulatory manager. He's been very involved in the notification to our residents. Both Maggie and Matt have been, but notifications of lead service lines. So we're really getting the word out. We're following the EPA protocol for the notifications and all the other stuff they have to do. But the new lead and copper rule, very complex, and they're kind of wading through that in addition to helping out with the lead service line replacement. I got to switch the presentation over here. Come on. Okay.
All right, thank you. This is really exciting information you're going to be sharing. Some of us have heard this already, but this is one of those legendary moments we'll look back at and look what we got accomplished in this moment in time for the people and everybody. So Matt and Maggie.
All right, well, good afternoon. Thank you for your time. We're just going to do kind of a high-level overview of what we have, our progress to date, and kind of how we're thinking about moving across down and doing service lines. We're going to kind of try to view this through the lens of environmental and social sustainability, improving everyone's water quality and making sure everyone has access to that. So I'd like to just start out by kind of quickly defining what a service line is. It's a small diameter section of pipe that runs from the water main into the house. And typical in most utilities and in Fargo, the ownership is split. The utility side runs from the main to the property boundary where the curb stop is. And then the private side is from the curb stop into the house. If any one of those two sections are made of lead, then that would be classified as a lead service line. Well, and I also want to stress that in Fargo, we also don't have any water mains that are lead, so it's just strictly that service line. Lead is a pretty malleable, dense metal, and it melts in a hot campfire. The Romans started using lead pipes many years ago. That picture on the right shows a collection of those pipes. They're over 2,000 years old, and what I'm trying to get at is lead can last a long time. It's extremely resilient to corrosion. And by 1900, for that reason, a majority of US cities were using lead for service lines. By about the 1950s, that popularity began to fade as other materials were available. And then in 1986, the US did ban lead pipe use. So kind of just want to talk about regulations and why we're looking at replacing all of them. In 1991, the lead and copper rule was implemented. This kind of required water systems to lower lead and copper levels in drinking water through a treatment technique called corrosion control. There's been a few revisions since, but previous to what happened in Flint, Michigan. But basically, Flint, Michigan did not properly provide corrosion control when they switched rivers, and then that led to high lead levels in their drinking water. That, of course, gained national attention, and it prompted lawmakers to change some of the regulations. We're currently in the lead and copper rule revisions, which requires us to kind of provide awareness, education, and notices to those with lead service lines. And then the big one coming up is in November 1st of 2027. We will see the lead and copper rule improvements come along, and that will require every water utility to replace lead service lines within 10 years. So nationwide, we have about 9.2 million lead service lines in the US. Galvanized is also included in the replacement category if there was lead upstream of that galvanized pipe. You can kind of see the high numbers of other big cities there, but I want to draw your attention to the high number of unknowns in New York. That unknown means that they don't have the proper information to classify those service lines. And that's kind of common for most utilities. They do have unknowns out there. Most of them do, so. And then kind of zooming into Fargo here, we have just a little bit over 2,000 lead service lines. The map on the right kind of shows you where the location of most of those service lines are. And of course, they're in the original parts of Fargo or the historic areas. Most of our inventory was made by looking at historical documentation such as meter tap cards. You can kind of see a picture of that one on the left there at the bottom. And then we also have a few unknowns and a few galvanized. Those are going to require replacement. And from talking to contractors and everything, those galvanized pipes transition to lead right underneath the basement slab. So if anyone wants to find more information about lead and copper, you can, in Fargo, you can search Fargo Lead and Copper. It'll bring you to our website. We have some additional information on there. And then I want to point out the interactive service line material map. If you click on that, you can enter your address, and then it'll zoom into that address and it'll tell you the classification on the customer side and the material side of that service line.
All right, so removing the risk from our exposure to lead is a priority because there really is no threshold level for which there may or may not be an adverse health risk from lead. This is particularly concerning for infants, small children, pregnant women, because it can cause reduced IQs and shortened attention spans. So in the environment, high levels of total lead exposure come from sources that can form small particulates. So like chips from lead-based paint is an example. In comparison to some of these examples up here listed, drinking water is a smaller, although still relevant, proportion of our total lead exposure. So the risk of lead exposure has decreased quite a bit since the 1970s, and that's due to a whole list of federal actions, including like banning gasoline or banning leaded gasoline, leaded fuels, and lead plumbing. So as a result, you can see blood lead levels in children have decreased by 95%. So lead in drinking water occurs from two main categories. And the first is the raw source water supply, or the water as it's leaving the treatment plant entering the distribution system. It is worth noting that the EPA did find in a study that fewer than 1% of public water systems actually had detectable levels in this source water leaving the treatment plants. The higher likely cause of lead in water is corrosion from lead plumbing, and that can come from lead that is leaching from our lead service lines. So to monitor are the lead concentrations in our water. Fargo currently tests for lead by collecting a 1 liter sample from a a pool of single-family homes that are either served by a lead service line or copper pipes with lead solder. Come 2027, as Matt was saying, the focus is going to shift to all structures served by lead service lines, and our sample volume will increase to 5 consecutive 1-liter samples. So with that data that we get from our sampling, the EPA will compare that data against an action level, which is essentially a gauge of how corrosive our water is. If greater than 10% of the samples that we collect in our monitoring period exceed the action level, that's going to require the public water system to provide further public education, revamp the corrosion control treatments, and really double down on our lead service line replacement efforts. So when looking at corrosion control, the amount of lead in drinking water can depend on how aggressive or how corrosive our water is. All water is corrosive to metal plumbing to some degree. It's just that some factors make it worse. So some of the parameters that can be adjusted or optimized prior to leaving our water treatment plant are listed on the left here. And there's key factors to consider of the distribution system when our operators are making these decisions for adjustments. For example, seasonal water temperature. Warmer water is more reactive and more likely to be corrosive than cold water.
All right, Maggie kind of talked about how lead gets in water. We're just going to have a discussion on corrosion control and what we do as a utility to minimize lead and copper from ending up in drinking water. So corrosion control is kind of a complex subject, but it on the basic level, it does involve a pH adjustment. pH determines the solubility of a metal, whether it's going to enter water or stay in the pipe wall. Maintaining our alkalinity is important because that buffers pH change out in the distribution system. We like to keep an eye on the mineral content, also known as the hardness of the water. And then maintaining disinfection residual is crucial. That really prevents a lot of distribution problems. And then also the addition of a corrosion inhibitor, such as orthophosphate, or in our case, orthopolyphosphate. Orthophosphate forms a protective layer on the inside of the pipe wall and acts as a barrier between the metal and the water. The picture on the right there, you can see a pipe that was removed from the Fargo distribution system. That's a lead pipe. And inside there, you can see that yellow scale. That scale is mainly calcium carbonate with some phosphate and then a little bit of some lead species in it as well. What's important here is to maintain the stability of that scale. So that's why you want to keep your water quality parameters leaving the plant finely tuned and not changing, because that'll just kind of maintain and keep that scale from demineralizing. And what happened in Flint, Michigan is when they switched rivers, they let their water quality parameters change leaving the plant, and then they stopped feeding orthophosphate, and that descaled that layer inside the pipe, and that's how they ended up with high lead levels in their drinking water. Fargo's been testing our water since 1992. So on that graph there, you can see the action level, which is 15 parts per billion. Our results are reported in the 90th percentile. And many of those years, it's been quite below that. And it's been low enough where we've qualified for reduced monitoring, meaning we can test our water every 3 years. Anytime a water system has a treatment change or a new source water, when they're under the reduced monitoring, then they go back to standard monitoring and test every year. That's what we did in 2019 when we added the membrane water treatment plant. So since 2014, our 90th percentile reported value for lead has been at 3 parts per billion or less. Additional steps you can take to reduce your exposure while you're waiting for your service line to be replaced would be to flush your service line out every morning. During the night when that water sits stagnant, it has time to interact with that pipe. So in the morning when you get up, if you flush your water for 4 or 5 minutes, you clear that line out and then you're drawing new water in from the street that hasn't had time to interact with that lead service line. It's also important to use cold water for drinking and cooking. And then also it's recommended to use a pitcher filter certified to remove lead as well.
So when regulations become enforceable in 2027 for our new regulation update, there will be a 10-year mandatory replacement timeline for all public water systems to replace all their lead pipes and connectors. Lead service lines for a private home or per home have been estimated to cost from $8,000 to $12,000, and in some cases it could cost more. Being that our replacement plan is a voluntary program, we can see that there's a potential for participation to be discouraged because it's quite costly. So the city was able to secure a $35 million drinking water state revolving fund loan, and that comes with 66% grant forgiveness. And then on top of that, our elected city leadership recently approved a resolution that will cover the remaining 34% local cost share portion, with a caveat that we can collect a follow-up drinking water sample that is going to be required by EPA. So some other good news, Fargo also is named a finalist for an environmental and climate justice grant, in which we may be awarded up to $350,000 for lead service line remediation in an EPA-defined disadvantaged neighborhood. We plan to focus on the Jefferson Carl Ben area with the use of this grant, and our goal is to replace as many lead service lines as possible with the available funding.
All right, so just kind of talk about our path forward with replacing lead service lines with the financial obligations removed for the homeowners. All we're really going to need is permission from the homeowner to replace the service line. I just want to talk about there's one condition that applies to that. Part of that funding requirement is that we test the water 3 to 6 months after the service line was replaced. So after the replacement, we're going to bill the property owner $1,000 but not collect it. Once that testing is completed 3 months later, then we will waive that fee and we will maintain our compliance with that program. So just some communication and outreach. You could probably wonder, how are people going to know if they have lead service lines or about the service line replacement plan? Under the new regulation, we are required to provide those notices. And then also with our replacement plan, we're really going to want to work hard to get that information out there and let people know about it. We will be using our website and the media and social media to target specific neighborhoods. And then we've kind of done a little community outreach already. We've met with some neighborhood associations and had some good discussions with that group. So moving forward, we'd like to do that as well. This map here just kind of shows on the right there, the people that have reached out that are interested in the program as of March. With the good news with the funding now, I think that would maybe be a little more, there would be some more interest there. And then also kind of with the state revolving fund loan, we do have to do a historical review and an environmental review on the areas we'll be working in. So we did have to narrow that down quite a bit to get it done in time for the summer. So we're kind of going to focus in on some neighborhoods and then kind of do a block by block approach in those neighborhoods that are approved. We will be working with the engineering department trying to do some of the replacements ahead of over or repaving projects, and then after major like water main projects, we'll have to come in after that, so we're not so we're out of the way of the contractors doing that work. So we'll have to do a little bit of planning ahead. After the reviews for one area is done, we'll immediately start to review for the next area that we're going into. And then our goal is to get the lead out by 2030. So just to kind of let people know how we plan to do it, we don't want to do big trenches all over people's yards doing this. We do plan on doing trenchless replacement. It is a lot quicker, and there's less impacts to the yard. So hopefully we can capitalize on that and be efficient with that process. And then after replacement, there are some requirements that we'll have to do as well. The EPA is worried about particulate lead ending up in the plumbing of the house, and that's basically that scale that can break off that's inside the pipe. So after the replacement is done, we will be providing residents with flushing instructions to make sure they do flush that line out and understand why we're doing that. Another requirement is we will have to provide a pitcher filter certified to remove lead for 6 months after that replacement. And then of course there is that testing lead levels in that residence 3 to 6 months following the replacement. So that's kind of a quick overview of everything we got. If anyone has any questions, they can feel free to reach out to us. There is a link on the lead service line replacement link on our website where you can shoot me a question if anyone has any questions. So that's what we have, and thank you for listening.
So Matt and Maggie and Troy, how does this impact commercial buildings and non-residential buildings? I haven't quite sorted that out in my brain. And we've got schools, we've got parks. I'm just curious about this bigger picture of all of them too.
Okay. My understanding is, if there's a lead service line, that building would qualify for that. And I'm not aware of schools having any lead service lines in Fargo, so it should all be PVC.
That's why I was wondering if they do or don't, and even apartment buildings, old apartment buildings, I just don't know. I know we talk houses, and I hear you talk residences.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard us talk about everybody else. And that's just my selective perception, perhaps.
Yeah, go for it. Yep.
No, any lead service line, whether it's commercial, residential, will be eligible for the grant funding. We have had communications with the state, so like what Matt referred to, the pitcher filters, we're gonna have to come up with another solution for that, for helping them out for 6 months. Say if it's a commercial building, we'll have to come up with another solution to take out any potential lead following that, but all the commercial, they will be eligible for that. The other thing that, I don't know if we mentioned, but for lead service lines, it has to be complete lead service line replacement to be eligible. So we can't just do partial. So we have to coordinate with engineering and other departments to make sure we're doing it the right way. So like some of the city-owned side of it will be replaced under other projects without the grant funding. That will be under other projects, then will come in later. But I don't know if that helps, but commercial. Yeah.
Troy, the inventory map, that nice map that you dropped up there, all sorts of dots all over the place, is that all lead service lines, whether it's residential, commercial, any lead service line out there, are they all represented on that map?
Yes, yeah, they are. I'm looking for that map.
That kind of gets to the chairman's question about they will be contacted as well, same program. We talk more about residences because they're much higher numbers, but they're all in.
Anybody else? This is really a significant project. And go ahead, Greta.
Oh, I have a couple of questions. One is, how did you determine that the lead service lines were in place? Is that from records, or are you just inferring that from the date of the build, or?
That's a good question, and I might have forgot to cover that, but when they installed all those pipes into each building, they did do a hand-drawn tap card there on the bottom left. So just about every house has that card, and mains and hydrants and meter department and GIS and engineering, they spent a lot of years looking through all those and scanning them in and determining that, so.
All right. Another question is, so you're going to test the water after the line is replaced. What about testing it beforehand so you can demonstrate impact?
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we've been using the 100 sites that we do around the city of Fargo as representing our distribution system and how well our corrosion control is working and how aggressive our water is, or if it is corroding really bad. Plus testing, it really adds up. It is a big expense. Not to say that we want to minimize that by any means, but it's just doing it afterward is the more important, because we think that's when people are going to get the most exposure because of the lines being disturbed.
Anybody else?
Gretchen, to your first question, anytime that a new water service is replaced by a homeowner in an older neighborhood, there's a permit process and there's an inspection process. So that's how we kept our records up to date, is our mains and hydrants department would go out there and inspect it after the work had been done. And so for the most part, we had a lot of it sitting in paper cards and up to date. Staff went through it for a lengthy period of time and got that all updated. And then when we're doing our meter replacement program, we're also capturing that data on the inside of the house, what's coming into the house, and we're photographing that, and they're identifying ones we're running into daily that were unknown. So we're constantly identifying unknowns that are out there.
Anybody else? Really interesting information. Thank you for sharing, and thanks for what you're doing. This is one of those just really major projects that will have an impact on people in a really good way. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
All right. Just a question for you all to ponder, and maybe we can do this through a Google poll, but Bruce, we've been meeting every quarter, have we been meeting, or?
Every other month.
Every other month, and what's your recommendation or thoughts on it?
Well, I normally would have next meeting, it would be May 13th, the second Tuesday in May, but talking with Brenda earlier, and she indicated that the two of you might have chatted about what's a proper frequency. I thought quarterly might be sufficient, but I'd be open to any suggestions anybody has. If you want to stay every other month, that works too.
My sense has been that we should probably aim for quarterly. You know, as I look around the table and I see the impact on each of your departments, when we pull you out of your workstation and you're coming here, this needs to be high priority time and used well, and not, because you all have your own jobs and needs to do. So that's my head. Is everybody, you know, if we shoot for quarterly, and, you know, there was a moment in time where we had pushback out in the community. Well, frankly, I'm just being honest. People were going, "You're not doing anything." You know, and there's this expectation that we're supposed to be doing more and something, and, you know, that stuff. So that's out there too. And then we also have the budget realities of we can't grow our staff, we can't grow our supports people. You know, so it's, in my head, it's really, really, really critically important to respect your time and your value, and the citizens and everybody here. So I don't want to waste time, and I also don't want to just put climate resilience. You can't even hardly say the word climate anymore, but topics like this on the back burner, and not know that they're priorities. So it's finding a balance. Any feedback from folks? Would quarterly work for the moment? And kind of the same time, like third Tuesday, was it second or third Tuesday?
second Tuesday of the month is the schedule we've been on.
So we'll aim for quarterly, the second Tuesday of those months, and give you as much advance notice as possible, and try really honor your time. Schools and parks and anybody else, don't be afraid to advance topics that you know are out there that we need to vet and be aware of. You know, don't be shy about that. Greta, with regards to citizens and public input, you know, you're our person for the moment, so don't be shy about that. And you're a scientist. Okay, so we'll shoot for quarterly meetings, and we'll just kind of play it by ear, and we'll schedule that out going forward. Any more on that? Go ahead.
If I can just add, I think something that would be really valuable, as we talked about grant availability for energy and sustainability projects, that's a really hard topic to stay on top of. And I think that would be a really valuable regular agenda item because it does change, right? What's available, what opportunities are open. And I think the more we can collaborate and talk about those in a setting like this, it should be, I would think, beneficial for all. So if there's an opportunity, if HDR or whoever would be willing to sort of present that, it doesn't have to be every quarter, but on a regular basis, or maybe it's as change happens, that would be really useful.
That's really good feedback, James, and it is that's where our funding will come from. So if we don't miss opportunities, that'll help us get more traction going forward. Anybody else on meeting at times and locations? All right, we have a public comment visitor today, and Dr. Madeline Luke from Valley City. Why don't you go over there, Dr. Luke, to the microphone there and introduce yourself. And she's driven here to meet with us and share some thoughts with us, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Strand, Mayor Mahoney, and Commissioner members. I'm Madeline Luke. I'm a retired internist from Valley City, North Dakota. And I'm here representing the Dakota Resource Council as an agricultural committee member. And I'm here mostly today to give you a heads up on what's going on in Abercrombie, North Dakota. I think it has implications for your future water and also your costs, and also the quality of life for your city. Abercrombie, as you may know, is about 25 miles upstream from you guys. And there's a dairy that's been permitted by the Department of Environmental Quality of 12,500 dairy cattle. There's one further up north in Trail County of 25,000 cows. So this is vastly outnumbers the number of dairy cattle in the whole state. And these are both projects of Riverview Dairy, which is a company out of Morris, Minnesota. Riverview Farms is an extremely aggressive company. I tried to count how many dairies they've got in southwestern Minnesota, and I came up with 13. That's probably plus or minus 2, because it's really hard to track down how many they've got. And the smallest one they have is about 5,000 cows, and the biggest one is 12,500 cows. The one in Trail County at 25,000 is the biggest one to date. I'm bringing this up to you because you are on the Red River. And the one in Abercrombie, which is the 12,500 one, is 1.4 miles west of the Wild Rice River, which is a tributary of the Red River, and less than 2 miles from the Red River. And it's going to produce manure, wastewater, manure, in large quantities. And depending on who you read, the estimates are anywhere between 150,000 and 500,000 people. That's the human waste equivalent. And this is all untreated, and it's going to go out on fields to be used as fertilizer. The concept of that is fine, but the key is the detail. Where are you going to put the stuff, and how much are you going to put on? And the Dakota Resource Council has, and the Abercrombie Citizens for Responsible Growth, contracted with a hydrologist, and he feels strongly that with the present nutrient management plan, not only are we going to be contaminating the groundwater pretty quickly, but also you're going to get a lot of overflow into the Red River. So what is it about the manure that could be causing you problems in the Red River, in Fargo? Well, most people look at nutrients. That would be nitrogen and phosphorus. And these are the chemicals that increase the likelihood of blue-green algae, the stuff that really makes you sick and it's real green. And particularly, all this stuff ends up in Winnipeg, and it really causes problems for them up there. What do I do? Okay. So right now.
You can just aim toward wrapping up. That's fine, Dr. Wu.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. So anyway, I've been trying to find on the internet what your quality measurements are now, and it's really hard. And it's hard to know whether the state is not doing it or it's just where I can't find it. But what I could find was that the water quality, the water concentration of nitrogen is about 2 in the Red River, and the standard they want to have at the border is about 1.15. So even before this stuff is added on, you're already exceeding. The other issue is E. coli, and of course that is bad bacteria. I couldn't really find a lot of material on that makes sense in regards to what our standards are right now. But the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency has pretty much said that this stretch of the river is really degraded to the point where recreation is not such a good idea. The other thing about this dairy farm is that North Dakota really hasn't faced this type of industrial farm operation before. So they talk about nutrients and they'll talk about E. coli, but they don't really mention things like hormones. All these cows are making milk and excreting a lot of estrogen. A cow weighs about 1,400 pounds. That's the weight of about 10 women. So this is a lot of estrogen that's going into the urine and into the ground and probably into your river. Of course, antibiotics are a problem too. When you have this many cows together, they get sick and they get antibiotics, and that also goes into your water. Your RO plant works great, and it's going to get rid of all this stuff. But with increasing stuff in the water, it's going to cost more, probably in terms of electricity and chemicals, filters. It may increase the amount of time, and I would ask your water quality, your water plant people to kind of look at this issue and see how much of a problem it's going to be. This is just one plant, and as I mentioned before, this is an extremely aggressive company. So you've got 12,500 cows going upstream for you now. Who knows how many more are going to be coming? The other issue is air pollution. They're going to be producing a great amount of manure. I think it calculated out to like 20 football fields full of manure. And all of this stuff off-gases nitrogen, and when that combines with stuff in the air, you end up with these small particles. They're called PM 2.5. And those are the things that cause inflammation in the circulatory system and contribute to more heart attack and stroke. Again, you're 20, 30 miles away from them, but if you have more of them, it all comes back to haunt you. So I'm here to give you a heads up on what may be coming. If you find that the concerns are worthwhile pursuing, then one thing you can do right now is this. We have appealed the permit that the DEQ gave, and this is a permit which we think they did without much due diligence, and that is on March 30th. Use your influence to ask the judge to let this appeal go forward. We feel that there's enough data, and it's all data-based, of course, it should be seen. People should know what they're getting into. And the other thing is, your water people are here, great, and I think that if there isn't a lot more water data that's available than I can see, I hope you're doing it. I know certainly in Valley City, we follow our sulfate levels really, really closely, and I hope that you are doing the same there. And if you can, try to make a projection of what happens when these different nutrients go up, what happens to your costs. Because certainly in Valley City, when the sulfate levels started going up, we started seeing that we had to replace our filters faster, and we had to do backwashing of our RO filters a lot quicker than we anticipated, and we had to go back to the state for more money.
Your timing is
Okay,
really
sorry.
good, Dr. Luke, to have our water department
Yes,
folks in here
exactly.
today. We need to wrap up,
Yep.
if you don't mind, but thank you so much for
Well,
making
thank
this
you.
trip here.
Thanks for your time.
Dr. Luke had asked to be on the agenda. We weren't able to accommodate that, but we do allow and welcome public comment, and it's important to hear from the people. Anything else for the good of the order? Mike Williams, anything, are you still there? Anything on, from your perspective for us to hear before we're done? He's there somewhere. Anyway, anything else? Dr. Mayor, Dr. Mahoney? If not, we will stand adjourned and we'll be meeting quarterly. We'll give you formal notices. We'll have our new member coming from the student representation in that meeting as well. Thanks, everybody.